I'm going to do a welcoming. I'm going to do a welcoming on behalf of Pastor Dan and First Press.
Is he here?
No, he
Okay.
won't be here. That's why I'm
Okay,
going to do it.
gotcha.
And then I'm going to basically a couple of other things. Thank our planning team.
Yeah.
And mention what we're doing next month, but not too much. And then I'm not going to introduce you to a great deal. I'm
Don't do
going to
it.
introduce you as local historian, author of several books.
Yeah,
Our
takes up
friend
my valuable time.
and frequent, first. Yeah. By the way, you don't have to worry about it going 20 minutes, 25 minutes,
Well,
30 minutes.
I don't want to take from
35
Walter's
minutes.
time.
No, but you won't be as long as you keep it less than half an hour.
Yeah.
Pretty
Okay,
sure.
I appreciate knowing that. It'll take a little pressure off me.
And people are going to ask questions. So,
Oh yeah, no, I know. And I'm gonna say at the beginning, we're gonna hold off on questions till the end. Can we do that? Or
No, remember we were going to do questions for you first.
Okay, I
have
forgot
questions
that.
for
I'm glad
you.
you reminded me.
Questions for you about the depot, train travel and use in the valley,
Okay.
etc. And then once they've asked all the questions they want of you, then we'll.
Am I going to introduce
Walter?
Walter?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I need
And
to tell.
I think he's head of Visalia Heritage. Is it Heritage Visalia?
Yeah, Visalia Heritage. He's president.
Visalia is Heritage, and he's leading the effort for a new.
Yeah.
And you can introduce.
Yeah. I'll take care of that.
You'll take care of that.
I need to tell him that we're going to do my questions before he comes up. So, because I didn't tell him that earlier.
Okay.
Oh my gosh! Hi, Miley.
I'm glad you're here.
Oh, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, we're looking forward
Yeah,
to
thank
this.
you. I need to find Walter.
Yes.
Where is Walter?
I don't know what he looks like, so I was
right here. No, there he is.
Oh, there he is.
When they introduce you, then put the first slide up.
No, when I say after my thank yous.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
We'll probably get started pretty soon.
do you want me up there now?
He wants questions after my segment. Then I will introduce you. So then you
Okay.
come up and then questions at the end of your segment.
That's fine. Just
Yeah.
You'll have to cut some off probably if they who knows.
We'll work it out.
Now, do you want me up there now, or you want me to just wait?
Just wait. Yeah.
You want a new microphone? Yeah, I'm trying to keep it out of her hands. Oh well. Another opportunity that I don't get what I prefer. You ready, Donna? Roscoe, you ready? Ready? All right. You all set? No? Did you find Walter? Try to keep myself tucked in. I'm gonna come unraveled too much. Good evening. Welcome to Tulare County Voices at 210. And Merry Christmas. It's not a very enthusiastic crowd, is it? Should I try it again? And Merry Christmas. There you go. Pastor Dan would be pleased with that second one. I'm here. My name is Paul Hurley, by the way, and I'm on the Tulare County Voices at 210 planning team, who I intend to introduce in just a minute. Don't let me forget. But I'm here to welcome you on behalf of Pastor Dan and First Presbyterian Church to Tulare County Voices at 210, a monthly forum to address issues of interest to our community. We meet on the second Tuesday of each month and have been doing it for more than 15 years now. And hopefully we'll continue to do it for years to come. We are extremely grateful and appreciative to First Presbyterian Church and its congregation for the use of this space. They allow us to use it for free every month, and we wouldn't have this forum without them, especially when we have a crowd this large. So thank you all for being here tonight. I talked with Pastor Dan this afternoon. He apologizes for not being here this evening, but he wants to extend his blessings, good wishes to Tulare County Voices at 210, to our forums, and to all of you. He wishes you a Merry Christmas. So when you see him, wish him Merry Christmas back. Or actually, wish him Happy Hanukkah. That will throw him. Before we get started, I want to introduce the Tulare County Voices at 210 planning team. Those of them who are here, we're missing one or two maybe. They meet throughout the year, a couple of times a month, to plan these forums, to contact the panelists, and to decide on the issues, and to help run things. Although the guy in the back does most of the running. I'll get to him in a minute. Our planning team members are, and if they will stand, Catherine Doe of the Valley Voice newspaper, Miley Melkonian, who's a general. Remain standing, please. I know, we should have had more rehearsal. Donna Kinshu, who is in the back. Bill Osak. You tried to hide on me, didn't you? Yeah, you did. Somebody as tall as you can't get away with it, Bill. Sorry. And Louis Griswold, who couldn't be here tonight, but he's part of the planning team too. And I'd like you to give them all a round of applause, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. The guy who really makes this show run is standing there at the back of the control board, Brian Gearhart. Give him a huge round of applause. Every year in December, we kind of at Tulare County Voices at 210 kind of present a Christmas card to Visalia in the form of our program tonight, which has become an annual thing, where we invite Visalia's preeminent historian and in a previous life, a local constabulary. He was pretty good at that too. But I'm speaking, of course, of Terry Ommen, who's been with us for, he's done this many years now. And he's here tonight to talk about trains, train travel and railroads, and how they helped build this community, and the depot, which isn't far from here, and for which is planned a historical museum. Assisting him in talking about the museum will be Walter Deissler, and Terry will introduce him a little bit more when we get around to it. Terry Ommen he joined the Visalia Police Force when he was 5, 6, something like that. And rose through the ranks, and when he retired at the rank of captain, it left a big hole in the Visalia Police Force, which, is why it is the way it is today. But in all that time, he continued to practice history. If you can practice history, I don't know, is that right there, Captain? Yeah, he's still practicing. Under the guidance of his mentor, Annie Mitchell, Terry became very interested in local history a number of years ago. Since then, he has done lectures, tours, projects, and written several books on local history. And he's joined us every December for a number of years. And I will stop talking here and let Terry get on with it. Please welcome Terry Ommen. I forgot one thing. There's a tip jar in the back. There's a contributions jar at the table by the door for 210 and First Presbyterian Church. And if you have any spare change or even folding money, if you could leave it there, it's for the support of 210 and First Pres. Thank you. Terry?
I guess that means no tip for me. Well, I'm not going to thank the people that he just thanked. That would be repetitive, but they were all very, very important to this evening, tonight, and other Tulare County Voices programs. But you know, there's one person, and he always kind of forgets this part. He was in it from the beginning. Committee members come and go. He's been in it from the beginning. And Paul Hurley is.
Oh. Thanks, Dave.
He is what I call the gorilla glue to this program. And without him, this thing would be like jagged. But anyway, thank you,
Glad you
Paul.
didn't stop at gorilla, Terry. Thank you.
There's one person that I need to thank. 1 year I forgot to do this. Oh my gosh, it was terrible. Not because she didn't forgive me. She did forgive me. But I said to myself, never ever again.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget to thank Larry, my wife. She didn't. I've often said my life is a two-person job. And I firmly believe that, and she's the second person in my life. And without her, I wouldn't be able to play like I do now and do all the things that I find enjoyable, because she is the technical person behind my ability to do any of these things, and that's why she's sitting in that booth there today. She's been at my side for 54 years. Now that is a saint, if you ask me. To hang around with me for 54 years, that's a terrible thing to put on anybody. But anyway, I do appreciate all she does for me, and I have very few opportunities, or take very few opportunities to acknowledge her, and that's something I need to do more often. Tonight, our topic is this 109-year-old Southern Pacific Railroad depot. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about its history. We're going to talk about presently as it stands. You'll see the picture right there. And we're going to talk about maybe a future for that building. Tonight's program is divided into two parts. One is the history part, which is what I'm going to do at the beginning here. The second part, when I'm finished, I'll open it up for questions on the historical aspects of what I just presented. And then I will introduce Walter Deissler, who's going to be the presenter on the second part. And Walter is the president of Deissler Heritage, so we'll get to him after my first short segment. I think I mentioned we're going to do questions on my portion after I present. Let's talk about history for a second here. And before we talk about this building, I want to give you a little bit of background on Visaya's railroad experience. It was not good. It was not good. Visalia is not a railroad town. And what do I mean by that? I mean a railroad town is one, generally speaking, where the railroad creates the town by coming through. We weren't in that boat. We were here 20 years before the railroad entered Tulare County for the first time. So we were in existence before the railroad came. So we are not, in that sense, a railroad town. Doesn't mean that railroads didn't have an effect on the prosperity of our community. They certainly did. And we'll talk more about that as we go as well. And my focus tonight is going to be on the Southern Pacific part of the history. Now, in 1872, the Central Pacific Railroad was coming up from the north to the south through the valley laying their rail lines. Southern Pacific was coming up through the valley from the south to the north, and the idea was that those two were going to meet. And at that point, that great line would be completed. They got to where Goshen is in about June of 1872. Now, why didn't they come to Visalia? They had a better offer, basically, is what it came down to. Visalia was already in place. So they couldn't create the town. They couldn't glom onto the property that Visalia was in already. People owned the property that Visalia was located in. They wanted to go to someplace else, so they chose the alkali fields Goshen area and created the town of Goshen. Now, that upset this town terribly. Railroads meant prosperity. And if a railroad bypassed you, that meant you were in for some hard economic times. And so the citizens of Visalia said, what are we going to do about this catastrophe? They tried to pay money to the railroad people to get them to come through. They wouldn't come through. So they bypassed Visalia and created the town of Goshen and opened up the main line about where 99 is today, what you're seeing there in the railroad. So the folks in Visalia said, we got to do something. We can't let the railroad bypass us. And so a group of enterprising Visalians said, we're going to create our own railroad. Now imagine that. Create your own railroad. And out of that conversation in 1874, 1875, 2 years after the railroad bypassed Visalia, Visalia had the Visalia Railroad Company. And for 22 years, we had a company called the Visalia Railroad Company, and they ran a spur line from Goshen into Visalia. And that was our connection to the railroad, our first connection to the railroad. First slide, please. That is the engine on the Visalia Railroad Company, the first engine that ran. It's a pretty pitiful example of a locomotive. But that was it. You'll see Visalia Railroad Company on the side there. It was a small locomotive. It didn't have to carry an awful lot because it was just between the two towns. And then they would dump passengers and freight off in Goshen. Then it would go on the main line, and that's all it needed to do. So, from 1875 to 1893, basically we had the Visalia Railroad Company here in town. Now, the first depot in town was set up about where Recreation Park is. And the reason that spot was picked is because the Stevenson family, a pioneering family, donated the land for the depot. We don't have a picture of that depot. Not that I know of. I've never seen one. It's too bad, but it would have been a nice one to have, but we don't have a picture of it. And so that depot was so far out of town for the locals, they thought, we gotta rent a buggy to get to the depot in our own, basically in our own town. Because the core of the town was where we are today. So they had to get all the way to Rec Park somehow to get on the train. So they said, we've got to move that depot into town. So in 1893, next slide please, they built this building at the corner of Church and Oak Street. And my pointer, which is an electronic pointer, does not work on a TV set. So this is my wife's walking stick. It's going to be my pointer.
High tech.
Here's the depot building. And this is where the depot that you see today is situated. And here are the tracks as it's heading down Oak Street. So in 1893, we solved one of the problems. The depot became closer to the core of the town. And so, fortunately, 4 years later, 1897, 3 years later, 4 years later, the Southern Pacific said, we want to buy the Visalia Railroad Company. And so they bought out all the rolling stock, all the track, the depot building. And in fact, next slide, please. And there's still the Visalia Railroad Company parked in front of the old depot with the freight building right here, which you'll notice Visalia Railroad Company. So they ended up, when the Southern Pacific bought it in 1897, they took over this building right here. In fact, next slide, please. When they picked the site, let me digress a little bit. When they picked the site, they didn't really do that great a job in site selection. It was one of the lower areas of town, and so when the town flooded, guess what happened? The trains had to learn to swim. And the other reason it wasn't necessarily a good decision is right here was the Tulare County Jail with no windows, no glass in the windows. So passengers had to hear people inside the jail carrying on conversations and sometimes yelling and sometimes saying things that were not necessarily fit for human hearing. So anyway, next slide, please. So this is the Southern Pacific. Now the same building that Visalia Railroad Company built, now it is Southern Pacific's depot, and it's on the same location, same building. That building again was built in 1893. Next slide, please. This is the same building with the crew that had the employees of Southern Pacific. Stan, you might be interested in knowing. C.C. Larry is right here. You know C.C. Larry, right? Was your neighbor. He was the head guy in charge of the Southern Pacific at that depot. Next slide, please. Now, in 1897, when Southern Pacific took over the depot and the rail line, the town was already going through some difficult times in terms of keeping up with the growth of the town. So they ended up, Southern Pacific ended up saying, we're going to move the 1893 building a block east to about Garden and Oak. And so that's the movement of the new location of that 1893 building. And this is a more modern photo because it stood there until 1982. And in 1982, next slide please, arsonists got to it and burned it down in 1982. And so that was out of the picture from that point forward. Next slide, please. So, Southern Pacific says, we're going to build a brand new depot for you. And the town was elated. They thought it was a great piece of news. We got rid of the old building. It wasn't suitable. The town was, in 1912, for example, in the heyday of railroads here in town, in 1912, there were 32 arriving and departing trains every day in Visalia. 32. Now keep in mind that was also at the same time that the Santa Fe Railroad had come to town. So it wasn't just Southern Pacific, but most of those 32 trains were passenger trains. So it was a big, big deal. Railroads were a big deal in this town. So this was the new building, built in 1916. Same year this building that we're seated in today was built as the Studebaker building. So, next slide, please. Notice, now we're talking about the building that we now know as the Depot Restaurant now. Just keep that in mind. This building had its entrance on the south side of the building. When we enter the Depot Restaurant now, we enter north going into the depot. This building was designed to have a circle drive. Here's where you entered the depot. And you departed this building to go over here to board the train. Next slide, please. Another view of that circle drive. But again, that was the configuration at the time. Next slide, please. Okay, that was the building. Now keep in mind, that's Spanish-style architecture. That was typical of what the Southern Pacific was building in those early years of the 1900s. Typical. A lot of the depots in the state were of Spanish style. Lots of arches, terracotta tile on the roof. In our case, we had a Visalia sign right here, which I believe was neon. Don't know where that is. We should have it somewhere. But there's some unique features. In here is Visalia. That's still there. These two lamps, still there. Can you imagine? How did those lamps survive 109 years without something bad happening to them? It's amazing. Now the buildings have these arches enclosed to make more interior space. But that was a typical depot building that the Southern Pacific constructed at the time. Next slide, please. Here's that sign, a close-up. It says Southern Pacific Sunset Routes to San Francisco, and it gives a mile marker there and an elevation here and Visalia there. What a beautiful sign. If we had that, that would be such a nice addition to that building. Next slide, please. Here are the two lamps. Here's the Visalia sign. And notice at the top, flagpole with the American flag right on top of the building. That's when it was brand new, first built. Next slide, please. Now, it's easy because of so many of the building that Southern Pacific built were Spanish style. It's easy to look at an old depot from other parts of California and get them confused. For many years, when I looked in my file, accidentally kind of was comparing notes, I just threw this one in the file thinking it was the Visalia Depot. But notice it closely. It's a different building. Same style, but a different building. I believe this is Porterville, right here. But notice the arches. They've got their own little features here. They've got probably their own Porterville marker here. But you got to be careful with those photos because Spanish-style depots look very, very similar depending on where you're looking at them, because sometimes you can easily make a mistake with them. Next slide, please. Now, as we were approaching 1940, railroads were on the decline. Why do you think they were on the decline? Well, they're on the decline because what was gaining more popularity? Automobiles, cars. Everybody had a car now. They didn't have to take the train like they did in the old days. They could take their own automobile, and big rigs were coming around, so you could have big tractor trailer rigs taking freight without using the railroad. And so in 1940, the last passenger train left this depot in Visalia. 1940. Now, for 30 years, that building sat vacant. It was vacant. Railroad owned it, but there was nothing inside. So it sat vacant until 1970. But when this was in its heyday, prior to 1940, you had circus trains coming up in front of that depot, and you had kids standing there watching circus elephants being detrained from the various cars. You had entertainers coming into town. You had politicians coming into town. In 1918, you had a trophy train coming through that had a display of World War I relics. That was a big hit in Visalia. So all of these things, thousands of people have used this depot since it was a depot in 1916. And so it was a big deal. And one of the things it was used for was a troop train. In June of 1916, most people confuse this with a World War I troop train. This is not a World War I photo. This is the Mexican expedition. This is when Pancho Villa was crossing into Columbus, New Mexico, and raiding the town and creating some problems on the border. This is the Visalia National Guard heading off to Nogales, Mexico in June of 1916. Right after this building was built, here's the depot, which, by the way, had a dedication on July 4th, 1916. The interesting part was it wasn't ready to be working as a working depot yet. They hadn't finished the outside stuff. And so even though they had this dedication on July 4th, it wasn't ready. It took till September for them to sell their first ticket to the public. And it was to a man named W.R. Spalding, who owned the lumber company here in town. He was the first one to buy a ticket at this depot when it was opened up to the public. Anyway, this is a great photo. It shows the soldiers right here. Looks like a hodgepodge, but these are all well-wishers. Here's the train. They're all boarding the train here. Depot is here. Next slide, please. 1971, actually 1970, a man named Elliott Hap Cobb. Elliott Hap Cobb. Anybody know that name? Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think I don't know if he's still with us, but I remember him a few years back. He bought it. He was an Iowa guy, had been a Navy soldier at Naval Air Station Lemoore, came here to live in Visalia, saw that building and said, I want that building and I want to turn it into a railroad-themed restaurant. And so he did. And he hired Ray Schlick, the architect, to design the interior to convert it from a depot into a restaurant. And he was in big time into antiques. And so he brought in all these exotic antiques, including a stained glass dome inside. I think it's still there. And just all sorts of interesting memorabilia inside to make that his restaurant. And this is a 1971 photo. And notice on here, it looks pretty similar, except right here is a wooden sign that says The Depot. And notice right here, these are enclosed, these arches, not all of them, but some of them. The doorway now that you go into the restaurant is this massive door that was once an open arch. Next slide, please. Better picture of the lanterns. Here's the depot sign. Here's the door that fills in the arch. This one's filled in, this one's filled in. Here's that Visalia sign that's still there. Next one, please. They put out postcards. I was only able to get one. There probably were several. But this one kind of highlighted the interior of the restaurant. And I don't know which owner actually put this postcard out, because when Hap Cobb sold it, I believe he sold it to Jan and Andy Piperas. And then when Andy passed away, and by the way, Mondo was kind of connected with Andy and Jan in their ownership of that restaurant. But then Andy died, and so the whole restaurant thing was up for grabs and sale. And that's when the Vartanians bought it. And that's where it sits today. Vartanians own it. COVID, they shut it down. And it's vacant as we speak. Next slide, please. A couple more pictures of how it looks today. Next slide, please. This is a side view, but next slide. That's the back now. That used to be the entrance, remember? So it looks quite a bit different than it did back in its heyday. So here we are. Next slide, please. What's next? Where do we go from here? Before I ask Walter to come up, I'm going to see if any of you have any historical questions that I can help you with at this point before we move on to the next phase of the program. Yes?
Please raise your hand if you have a question and use the microphone, because this is being live streamed and recorded. So if you don't use the microphone, they won't hear you in the live stream. So use the mic.
Okay, who's got the microphone now?
Over here.
Miley, are you there?
Where was the Santa Fe Depot?
You do now.
Okay.
Yeah, raise your hand so we can get the mic to you.
Who has a question?
Right in the front row.
Terry, thank you for being here. Do you know how many old train depots exist?
Throughout California or the country?
Either.
Boy, I don't know. I think a lot of them have turned into museums, to be honest with you. I know Porterville's is a museum, but I don't. To answer your question, I do not. I don't know. There probably is an inventory someplace, but I've not seen it. Sorry. Next microphone, right here. Oh, we got one. Okay.
Where was the Santa Fe Depot?
Santa Fe Depot was right at the corner of Main Street in Santa Fe, on the southwest corner. I think it's Pagoda Restaurant there now, but it was right there, and yeah, it was a pretty big deal too. Yes, Tony.
Did the electric trolley run from the depot up to Merriman Station, or did it run from somewhere else?
Well, Now, if you say electric trolley, let's get the terminology right here. We had the Visalia Electric Railroad, if that's what you're talking about.
Might be. It looked like a trolley, but it went from up to Merriman Station.
Yeah, it went for it in 1900. The Visalia Electric Railroad Company, I believe, was incorporated in 1899 or 1900, and they leased the line, the rail line that the Southern Pacific had that left Visalia to the east. And so the Visalia Electric Railroad went as far as the Terminus Beach, which is where Terminus Lake is today, right at the base of the dam. There's still remnants of it there, but it went as far that way, and then it went to Exeter, went to Lemon Cove, and it was really quite an amazing train, but it used the Southern Pacific rail lines. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, right up front here.
So when you said they used the Southern Pacific rail lines, did they take the Southern Pacific line and you just run the electrical line over top of it?
Yes.
And they would both run on the same line?
And what was the second part of that?
They would both run on the same track?
Exactly. The electric, of course, ran on excess power from the Mount Whitney Power Company. And they ran that electricity above the lines, and that's what the electric railroad ran on. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, Newell.
Yes, who was the
Microphone.
Yes, who was the architect that designed the original depot, and was it the same architect that designed the other ones that you said were so similar?
Almost all of the Southern Pacific depots, including ours, was designed by the Architectural Bureau of the Southern Pacific Railroad. They had a whole unit that had plans for all the different railroads that they were building. So there was no, that I could find, there was no specific architect within the Southern Pacific that designed it. It was credited to the Architectural Bureau.
Terry, my question is kind of a piggyback on those earlier ones. How come there aren't electric power lines in front of that depot if Visalia Electric ran to that depot?
Depends on the year.
Well,
Because if the I think the actual Visalia Electric started about 1904, I think. So any photo that shows an aerial view of the front or the back of the depot should show those lines after that date.
but if this was 1916, shouldn't the power lines be in that picture?
This is not 1916, this is today.
Well, but the earlier pictures were 1916.
Let's see if
or
we can,
thereabouts,
let's
and
see
I
if we
didn't
can
see
find
power
any.
lines.
Yeah, she's gonna do a run back and we'll see if we can see any lines. That's still new, 71, they were gone. Yeah, you would think they would be there, wouldn't you?
I'm just wondering if the power lines started once it got out of town.
Go back another one. I see electrical lines, but those aren't the Visalia electric lines. Go back again. Back, back, back. See that? These cut it off. Go back. Oh, wait a minute. Right here, you can see them.
Okay, good.
You see them right there?
All right, the mystery solved. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the Visalia electric cars had this arrangement, and there's a term. Anybody know the term for that apparatus that sits on top of the electric car that actually makes the connection? There's a term for that, and they kind of run right along those lines and just follow the lines as the track goes. So that's how that worked, and it was pretty ingenious, really. Yeah. Any other questions?
Jerry, in your research, in 1910, how long would it have taken someone to leave from Visalia Depot and get to Oakland?
So in 1910, you'd still be, if you started in Visalia, you'd still have to make a connection in Goshen. Then you would head north and then go up by Lathrop. Do you know where Lathrop is? And then cut over. So I'm thinking, don't hold me to the time here, but I'm thinking you could do that in probably 8 hours. Yeah, it wasn't too bad, really. And that's what it was. Think about this for a second. Up until the railroad was here, if you wanted to get to Oakland, how did you do that? On horseback? Bicycle? Wagon? I mean, now you can see how important a railroad coming to your town was. You could see Aunt Mabel in Omaha without having to go by wagon. That was a big, big deal. And so you could see how the prosperity that it brought was pretty amazing. And then it was only later that the railroad turned into a donkey's you-know-what, with the Big Four and the octopus and the Muscle Slough tragedy and all the negative publicity, mostly deserved, I might add, was aimed at the railroad. So, I mean, here it was a savior that turned into the you-know-what. So, I mean, it's an interesting, very interesting story, but you can really see how communities wanted that railroad to come to town, because that meant freedom, really. I mean, you could do a lot of stuff with a railroad coming through your town. Other questions? Yes?
Yeah, just the, you had mentioned just a little while ago that there were like 30 arrivals and departures from Visalia. Now, they weren't using the same track heading to Goshen, were they? Or were they just circling around toward Porterville and heading out?
There were sidings here in Visalia, in other words, side-by-side tracks. But when you headed out to Goshen from Visalia and you got into the open stretch, you had one set of tracks. And you got there and they were round tables, turntables. So when you got to Visalia, let's say from Goshen to Visalia, how do you turn around? Well, you turn around by putting the engine on a turntable, spinning that turntable around and pointing them to Goshen. They drive forward, and now the cars that were going this way now hook up and go that way. How many of you have seen the turntables in San Francisco for the, you see how everybody's pushing the cars as it goes around the turntable? That's what it was.
Were there any accidents?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh, really?
Especially with Visalia Electric. Visalia Electric, I mean, this was a wild west for electricity in those early years.
At one of your previous lectures, you mentioned something about, I believe it was an anvil salute. Now, was there one in one of the photos you mentioned about 4th of July celebration? Was there ever one that occurred here?
I don't know of any connected to the railroad. We had lots of anvil salutes. And you talk about the Wild West. I mean, ATF would go crazy if they saw what was going on for those anvil salutes. But I mean, that was their entertainment, and that wasn't considered out of the ordinary. But nothing connected to the railroad that I can think of offhand. Stagecoach, yes, but railroad, no. Okay, any other? Over here.
Was there any connection directly up to Three Rivers, like from the Terminus Dam area? Was there ever a railroad that served, one of the electric railroads that served Three Rivers and brought people down?
No, the farthest the Visalia Electric went, and no other railroad went up. There were plans for further, but no other railroads went further than Terminus Beach, where the dam is now. That was it. Nothing made it to Three Rivers. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, now, Walter, this is your cue to get ready. Walter Deissler is the president of Visalia Heritage. He and his board are working diligently to do something with the Depot restaurant. And I'm going to let him explain to you what he's doing and what his vision is for that, but it's pretty exciting, so I'd encourage you to listen closely to what he has to say. Walter?
Okay, well, thank you, Terry.
Sure.
Let's
Let me.
give Terry a hand.
Yeah. Okay. You want my pointer?
No, I don't need the point.
Okay.
I'm going to go high tech. I want to thank everybody for inviting us to speak tonight. I'm Walter Deissler, the president of Visalia Heritage. I'd like to thank my steering committee and my other board members who are here tonight also in support of our effort to restore and re-envision the historic depot. One of our main thrusts right now is to create an interactive and space for all to enjoy. The cultural galleries will be dedicated rooms to showcase the stories of Visalia's many communities and their contributions to this town. The indigenous American Yokut Indians, the Mexican Americans, the Chinese Americans, the American Armenians, the European Americans. These galleries will host exhibits, artifacts, and interactive stories. These spaces will not stand alone, but flow into one another, reflecting the interconnectedness of the city's heritage. We have created a story quilt, which we have over here, and each square that we have tells a story. And so when you put your phone up to
you can take this chair.
This and click the
Thank you.
QR code, actually that should pop up here, will tell you the story. So this is Mrs. Spalding. She has a first electric car.
I better keep it.
So
I better keep it for now.
There are stories throughout Visalia that make our community, and we created this story quilt to explain all the different stories that people may have. So,
Are you sure?
Who here tonight remembers the Depot as a restaurant? Who remembers it as a train station? See, it's been a restaurant longer in the memory of Visalia than it has been a train station. So part of our idea for the rebirth of the depot, for those of you who remember the 612 room, the bar that was in the depot, we plan to have it reopened and use it and have it serve as a bar and a small cafe. We also will be having other spaces that will be leased, one of which will be for Visit Visalia. And Susan Bianco is here tonight, who is part of Visit Visalia, and they will be our tourist enterprise in the depot. We also want to create what we've called an art walk, which for those of you who are familiar with the depot, there's 2 train cars that are connected to the depot itself. In front of the train cars, we'd like to create a entertainment venue so that we would have, more sort of interactive community activities between the rail cars and the Railway Express building. We'd like to lease some of those spaces and have what we call an art walk, which would complement then Arts Visalia, which is across the street. We have a mini museum down the street for Visalia Heritage in the new Lofts building. We're trying to create a cultural center to Oak Street through this area. So one other little thing that we're trying to make this museum cultural center interactive. So if you take your phone to this, and you put it over this QR code, it plays music. We kind of cheated and took the Crosby, Stills, Nash song and cut and sliced it, but so this is just an idea to give a vision for this with the outdoor entertainment.
But then we have to get to all of the practical side of this. We will have leasable space, which we feel that we can, and we have a budget, so we put this together, that we will have $9,000 per month in income. This will help sustain the building so that we can grow the museum, keep it operating. Of course, $9,000 a month will not keep the entire enterprise operating, but it certainly will help make it more sustainable than if we were just a standalone museum with no other, income. Our overall fundraising goal is $6 million, of which $2 million will be used to purchase the building, $3 million will be used to renovate the building, and $1 million will be used for startup costs in the first several years so that we can have some sustainability so that we're not turning the lights on the first month and going, how are we going to pay for this? So the vision for this is that it becomes a place for everybody in the community to enjoy. It's where school children can learn, where everyone in the community can share their stories, and that's part of our idea, is to have this story quilt which will be shared ideas with the community. At one time, this station carried all the passengers to new places and new horizons, and so too will this Cultural Center Museum carry Visalia into the future of its cultural viability. So we ask you to be all aboard as the song was playing, and together we can ensure that the depot is not just preserved but reborn. And now I'd like to play a little video here for everyone to look at. All aboard! Visalia Heritage was founded in 1979 to save many of the historic buildings in Visalia that were being destroyed. Over the years, we have accomplished a lot. Now we are embarking on the biggest project of all. We have started a campaign to purchase the historic depot train station and restaurant with plans to turn it into Visalia's Cultural Center Museum. We envision a place that honors all the different cultures that have influenced our city. Interactive exhibits where families can learn about their heritage, where visitors can understand Visalia's part in opening Sequoia National Park, and the fascinating stories about famous train robbers, historic oak groves, how Visalia is the oldest town in the valley and was a hotbed of controversy during the Civil War, and how we became an agriculture area that feeds the world. The depot is located in what is becoming Visalia's art and cultural district, with Arts Visalia, the old jail, the lofts at Fort Visalia, right across the street. Our museum will add to the ambiance with a cafe and an area for cultural events. Most valley towns have a museum, and it's time we establish one that tells our story. Many Visalians have joined our efforts and see the value of creating what will be a gathering place for art, culture, and history in the heart of Visalia.
I'm honored to be a part of the Visalia Heritage Steering Committee because Visalia is more than just my hometown. It's part of who I am. I believe our history deserves a permanent place to be preserved and shared. Building this museum is about giving back to the community that shaped me and ensuring that future generations feel that same pride in our roots and our culture and the people who built Visalia into what it is today.
I'm really excited about this whole project. The idea to bring the culture of Visalia, the history of Visalia, into a new museum in one of the classic buildings here in downtown. It'll be such a great opportunity to bring visitors, guests, and just enliven the whole business community down here in the area.
My cousin Michael, who is one of the owners of the building, our grandmother, when she survived the Armenian genocide, spent 2 years in an orphanage in Turkey and then was sponsored to come to the United States with family. She came to New York and then took a train, a very bumpy train, she said, for 4 days across the country, and ended up right here in this building. So it's very special to me, and I'm sure to Michael too, to know that some people might not like it, but the Shucklian history kind of started here.
I'm Michael Shucklian, Amy's cousin, and
more or less, I just like to let you guys know that seeing all you people here today and the diverse nature and the involvement here in the city would make my father-in-law, John Bartanian, I think very, very happy for this project to go through. When the opportunity of this building came up in 2011, John called me over and said, Mike, I just love the property. There's something about the property that means Visalia. And it meant a little bit more to him because he was, in 1971 when they opened up the restaurant, this was his main competition at the Venice Press.
I'm so happy to be with you for a few moments to share my tremendous pride in the city of Visalia. We are the jewel of the San Joaquin Valley, and we have a long history of culture and blessings for being placed here in this community. I've been here 65 years, coming as a bride and marrying a California history buff. I can thoroughly appreciate the fact that we have this rich heritage. And I'm inviting you to share my vast enthusiasm for the Visalia Heritage Committee that has sponsored and renewed the idea that we can utilize original train station of Visalia to be the home for a new cultural and historic museum. Please join me in supporting this project so that we can see this dream come true.
So I just wanted to share a couple other points. So just to show that we're getting support and interest. So this afternoon before I came over here, the president of the Southern Pacific Historical and Technical Society, which has about 1,000 members in the United States, this next year they're going to have their convention in Visalia and in October, and so they're very interested in having an event in our depot. We already have a commitment from the Cattle Women's Association for an exhibit in our museum, among others. We're working with several other groups in the community to do the same thing. So I think it's just on the verge of, really culminating into a very active and prosperous project for the community, and I encourage everybody to become part of it. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer, anything. Yes?
Well, while you take questions, can you put the website up on that screen? The website, Visalia Heritage.
Well, I don't think I have a slide for it.
Well, that's that. Brian.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he'll have to get it.
I have a question. I gotta confess, all this time I didn't realize the bar had its own name. Six, what is it?
612.
612, what is that referencing?
Terry, isn't that the engine, the light from the engine that went through there, or through?
Yeah, and the bar itself, I think was a. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think it was, Walter, but I think the bar too was some historic bar, and I don't recall exactly where it was, but so many of the things inside the dining room are old railroad, what do you call those, berths or rooms that you had when you traveled by train over long distance? Pullman car booths or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of the things inside have a historical connection, and I think it was thanks to Hap Cobb, but I think Andy and Mondo and the Vartanians kept going with that historic theme, and so there's a lot of connections there historically that need to be discovered, really.
And we put up one of these large banners in the lobby, which you can look at on the way out, and in it is one of the pictures from when it was in 1916 or maybe 1920. It shows the interior of it, and one of the interesting parts is that on the wall on the top of the wall, there's the emblem of the Southern Pacific Railroad, which is covered with wallpaper now, we assume. But I mean, we're hoping when, we don't plan to change any of that. So. Any other questions? Yeah, there. Yeah. Yeah, but it's a, see if it'll,
I don't want it to be too silent if no one has any questions.
there it is. There. Oh, I guess he's already there. Yeah. So. Yes, Terry.
How much of the interior of that depot do you anticipate having to reconfigure in order to make this work for a cultural center / museum?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the main area that you walked into that used to be the loading platform, the waiting area, which was outdoors, but it's now indoors when it was turned into a restaurant. Then you go into the main dining room, which was the original part of the building, which is the main room, and behind it, the one Terry referred to with the dome, it's known as the dome room. Those will all be exhibit areas. The entire kitchen will be gutted because we have no need for that size or a kitchen at all. Down at the end of the hall is what was the baggage room, which is a banquet room. That's where Visit Visalia will be located. So the main part of what we have to do is reconfigure where the kitchen was. That'll just be open space for exhibit space, but it needs all new heating and air conditioning. I mean, everything in there is, was put in 1970, and except for some sort of failure, over the years, like you'd have on your home and you change out the unit, it really hasn't been changed. The electrical's old, and the roof, I can tell you, has several leaks, so, But one of the amazing things, we had part of our due diligence when we went into escrow, we had a report done by an inspection company. And the original building with the tile roof does not leak and is in great condition. Go figure, right?
I had a question. Have people been coming forward with that they have stuff that they want to exhibit at the museum? And also there's a lot of stuff at the museum in Mooney that's Visalia oriented.
Yeah,
so people come forward with stuff they want you to put in the museum?
People will, and we will have a certain process to go through that. Because, I mean, just to be honest, you have to be careful. I remember going to a museum, I go to lots of them. My wife puts up with me with this. We stop at these little museums. And so I go into this one museum, and the curator there, she goes, "See that chair?" And I go, "Yeah, nice chair." She goes, "It is. But the family gave it to us, we were thrilled." And then next week, 12 more showed up. I mean, so we will curate things but we certainly welcome everyone's items to be reviewed.
Have you been to the Mooney Museum? Because they've got stuff in their storage that's old Visalia stuff. And are they willing to hand it over?
We haven't gone that far yet,
okay.
So we don't know. Yeah.
Hi, Walter. I see our website up there. Can you let the room know the best way for people to get information and stay involved with our campaign and just to be aware of what's going on as we travel this rail towards our project?
Tyler's our guru for getting the word out, so I'll let him explain.
So we do have social media at Visalia Heritage. I run the social media. And we have a Facebook page you can follow. We also have an Instagram page. We're very active. And so I would encourage everybody in the room to follow if you have those accounts. You can also sign up on our website for emails and email alerts. We're starting to send out what we call Visalia stories, which are just short blips. They take just a couple minutes to read. They're not a long story, but it's a little 5-minute tale that is of interest. It's not just about the depot. Sometimes it's about things in Visalia's history that are interesting in other ways. So I would encourage everybody to sign up on our website. In terms of donations, you asked donations. I would kick this back to Walter for him to explain that.
So let me just finish with the story part first. So like I mentioned, part of our whole objective is to create a story about Visalia through the stories of everyone in the community. Everyone has a story, whether it's about their heritage in Visalia or whether it's about something that occurred, when they visited the depot. We would really enjoy having those stories passed on to us. As far as the donations, we have a full campaign going. We have prospectus that we're going to have at the back for you when you leave, if you care to take one with you. We really need everyone in the community to become involved in this. It's not a simple task to raise $6 million, but we know that we can do it. We're very encouraged where we are so far. We've only had 2 events, and we've only been really working on the campaign as far as fundraising since September, and we're close to $500,000. So I think that's really excellent for as far along as we are right now. So, and it is a 3-year campaign, like I mentioned, the steps in the campaign.
You said that the Southern Pacific Aficionado group is coming in 10 months. Are you going to be ready for them?
Well, that's a good question. So, yes and no. So what we have done right now, the Bartanians hired a professional cleaning crew, and we've cleaned most of the main public areas, being the entry, the main dining room, the dental room, and the 612 bar. And we are setting up temporary exhibits which will go a little further than, say, for instance, this Chinatown display. We also have a case, and in that case we will have exhibited some artifacts from the Lum family. They have loaned us some items. Also, we'll be getting some items from hopefully the tea garden. We're working with them. So we will be setting up not just a vision of what it could look like, but actual artifacts for people to see. And then we'll start giving tours as we get this further along. So yes, we will be ready for them. I think they're interested from the sort of train side of it. This will not be a train museum, but I think they're interested in the fact that we're restoring an old historic train depot into another use. I mean, repurposing the building. So.
When do you expect to have a grand opening, a ribbon cutting?
Probably not for 2.5 years. Yes. Our current status is we're in escrow. So once we close escrow, we would like to start some renovation. And we're also going to be starting to do some pre-leasing so that we can get ahead of the game so that we don't close escrow and go, now what? We'd like to be ahead of the curve so that we could start leasing some space right away to generate some income while we're renovating also the area to exhibit in.
Walter, in some of my reading about the Southern Pacific and their architectural bureau, I read that our depot, like most of the depots, was built with concrete and stucco. And when I read the concrete part, I thought, my gosh, isn't the Fox concrete? And how difficult will that be, I wonder, in trying to manage some of that concrete that needs to be moved around or whatever?
Well, the building that is, for those of you who remember, the main dining room, that was the original structure. So everything outside, not everything, but a lot of it outside of that was added when it became a restaurant. And those are just studded stucco buildings. So, like gutting the kitchen should not be an issue because that part of that was not the original building.
Are you thinking when they say that it's constructed with concrete and stucco, are those pretty much, do you think, bearing walls only? Or are those interior walls too?
The four walls that hold up the main dining room are bearing walls because it's a hip roof, and so they all bear on it. Yeah.
Okay.
But there's already openings in those walls, but we don't intend to change that. So
Okay.
we would not be adding any holes or doorways through that.
Right.
Anybody else? A ghost story? That's not a good ghost story. Mine's not good.
Surely someone in here has stories about me.
My brother waited tables there in 1972.
Yeah. We also got Mondo's scrapbook. So we have Mondo's scrapbook, which is great.
You know, Walter, I have a quick story, and this is near and dear to me because I used to go into the depot for lunch or whatever, and every Thursday afternoon, Annie Mitchell had a table that she and her girlfriends hung out at every Thursday. And I'll always walk in there and remember looking at that table spot and remember Annie sitting there with all her friends, chewing the fat. And so that's one of my memories.
Hi, Walter. You mentioned earlier that I think you said the California or Tulare County Women's Cattlemen Association or something?
Yes.
You've been in contact with them. So it would seem like there are many, many other groups like them that have their own history, not just us as individuals, but organizations, businesses, the government, the civic growth of the community. There's all of those kinds of stories to be told too. Can you maybe talk a little bit about other entities that might be interested in providing displays?
Yes, I've also talked to, let's see, well, I guess it's the Medical Society, and they have quite a few artifacts and a history, and it's something that, once again shows a different aspect of Visalia or a community than what most maybe museums would have. We could have a history of how the medical started here, and they have a lot of artifacts, and they also have the minutes from all the meetings from back in the early 1900s. I've been meeting with the Mexican American League of Women, and they're very, very anxious to become a part of our museum effort. So yes, there's a lot of different groups, and we encourage all groups to contact us because we'd like to be, have you be part of our museum and cultural center. Wait.
I can't be heard without a microphone, that's for sure. Well, we expected a lot more contribution from our audience tonight. No, seriously, we thought we were trying to mine, and so we're plumb the audience for their stories, for their remembrance, memories, etc. of the depot and of that area of Visalia. If there are some, contact Donna Orozco, who's on my left, and Tyler, forget your name, last name, Tyler was... Davis, right, of course, everybody knows him. Tyler Davis, over there, and they will be in touch with you to record those. I believe it's the intention of Visalia Heritage and the people who are working toward creating this historical museum to collect the stories of Visalia. Now, they're going to come from you. They're going to come from your memories. They're going to come from the memories of your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors, and others. Tyler and Donna will be interested in any of them, and they will make their way into this museum. This museum will be built on stories and on memories, and that's going to come from you. It's not just going to be the brick and mortar, because that's already there. So think about it, and please help them and us. The cultural richness of our community is only as rich as what you contribute. So please do that. I'd like to thank Walter Deissler of Visalia Heritage and Terry Ommen, who's around here somewhere. There he is. He doesn't have a mic, so he's practically invisible. For their presentation tonight. Please give them a nice round of applause. With that, I would like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and to assure you that we will be back in 2026 here, TC Voices at 210. Our first forum on January 13th, 2026 will be misinformation and disinformation. So you can imagine what that's going to be about, and we hope you will join us next year. Thank you all very much. Good night. What? What's that, Walter? I can't, unfortunately. Yes, thank you.